Hello, my name is John Fisher, and this is Kato Cato. And let me just check one thing. Oh, yes, okay, good. So, thank you for joining me, and we're going to begin in just a few minutes. Thank you so much. Hey, I'm Kato Keilen, and thank you for being here tonight, all of you. I really appreciate it. I already believe in you because I think this is an incredible investment opportunity, and I think that I just want you to believe in me. Yeah. So I'm going to answer any questions you've got for me because I want you to know that I'm open, I'm truthful, I'm out there, and but not out there in a bad way, just out there, like available. Like yeah, yeah. And so you can ask me anything you want, anything you want. Um, so go ahead. Don't be shy. Ask me. Yeah. Yeah. What's that? What? Oh, where am I from? Oh, yeah, easy. Yeah, I'm from Milwaukee in Wisconsin. Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Kato? Kato? Oh, no, Kato's nickname. My real name is Brian. Yeah, Brian. Yeah, but I was really into Bruce Lee when I was a little kid. Yeah, I really loved the Green Hornet. You know his TV series. A lot of people didn't watch the TV series, but I love this TV series. It was really, I was into karate. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so his character's name was Kato. So everybody started calling me Kato, and it stuck. That's how I became Kato. Yeah, I was Brian, but now I'm Kato. Yeah, yeah. College? Did I go? Yeah, I went to college. Yeah, sure. I went to college. Yeah, I went to the University of Wisconsin Eau Claire. Yeah, yeah. That was the school I went to. It's in Wisconsin. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's that? Oh, what? Oh, what was the best thing I did there? Well, no, I can't talk about that. Yeah, I can't actually talk about the best thing I did there because that's I'm a gentleman. Yeah, yeah. I'm a gentleman. My ex-wife and my daughter Tiffany, they're always telling me you got to be a gentleman. So I'm a gentleman. So I'm not going to talk about the best thing I did at the University of Wisconsin Eau Claire. But oh well, here I can talk about this. One night, a friend took me to see this really old movie. It was called Sunset Boulevard. Yeah, Sunset Boulevard, and it had this character named Joe Gillis, and I loved Joe Gillis. I thought he was just great, because he like went to Hollywood, which is what I wanted to do, and he didn't make it. He wanted to be like he wanted to write screenplays, right? And he didn't make it, but he found this woman to like to take care of him, right? So he lived in this big house in Beverly Hills, right? She was like his sponsor. Yeah, he found a sponsor. Norma Desmond. That was the character's name. Yeah, yeah. So I thought this is great. I mean, that's what I want to be, Joe Gillis. Because if I don't make it in Hollywood, if I can't be like an actor, I'll just be Joe Gillis. Yeah, I'll find a sponsor, and all you got to be is nice. To be a house guest, you just have to be nice, and I'm nice. People like me. They give me things, and that was my inspiration, Sunset Boulevard. Yeah, yeah. It was that movie that did it. Yeah. Did I like college? No, I didn't like college. I didn't. That college was dumb. It was so dumb. You see, I was like famous. Yeah, I was. I was on the college TV station, and they had this great TV station, this great studio, and I had a talk show. It was called Kato and Friends. Yeah, and everybody was on my talk show, the campus talk show. I had the coach of the football team and the quarterback and the head cheerleader. I was super popular, and I started a game show. I had my own game show on campus too, on the campus TV station, and we had great prizes, like dates with the cheerleaders, and certificates, passes and money, money to use at the cafeteria. It was great, and my English teacher gave me a C. I always getting C's. I'm like, what's that about? And he said, well, you got to prepare, and you got to take exams. I'm like, what's the big deal? I mean, I'm famous. So I was like, they couldn't, it's like they gave me bad grades, but I was like famous. I was making the campus famous. I mean, I was making the campus famous to the campus, and they wouldn't acknowledge that. And then I told him, I said, well, my grammar school teacher said that a C is an average grade. Yeah. He said it's not a bad grade, it's not a good grade, it's an average grade. So, I'm going to be happy with the C. And he said, no, you can't be happy with the C. You got to work harder. And I was like, forget it. I mean, I'm making people famous. The cheerleader, I'm making famous and giving away free lunches. And I was like, they were nice to me. Here's my advice. If you're nice to people, they're nice back. They give you things. And you're almost giving the campus all this stuff, and they weren't nice to me. So it was time to leave. I went to the California State University of Fullerton, because I wanted to be down near LA. So I transferred there. And did I finish? No, I didn't finish there either. Yeah, there were problems there also. Yeah. Nicole Simpson. Yeah. How did I meet her? Oh, well, I met her at Aspen. I was working at Aspen. I was a waiter for a long time in LA, and then that wasn't working out. And so I said to my friend, what are you going to do this winter? And he said, well, I'm going to work at Aspen. And it's great. You work at the ski lift, the ski slopes during the day, and then at night, you can ski yourself, or you can ski on the weekends. It's great. You can be a ski bum. And Aspen's the best place ever. I don't know if anybody's been up there, but you can like ski right into the stores. You come right off the slope, and there's like a Bulgari or a Tiffany or Ralph Lauren. You just ski right in and buy a sweater or buy a diamond ring, and it's great. I love it. That's where I met Nicole. When did I start living with her? Oh, well, when we got back to LA, I went by her house. It was on Bundy, and there was this little guest house behind it. I said, "Who lives in that?" She said, "Nobody." And I said, "Well, yeah, could I live in it?" And she said, "Yeah, sure." She let me live in her house. Yeah. Yeah, I paid rent. I paid $500 a month, but I didn't always pay it because I babysat. I was a babysitter for Sydney and Justin. Yeah, I love those guys. Those are the best kids, and they love me. They had this Akita, the dog, the Akita dog, and they named it after me. They named it Kata. Yeah, because they loved it. They love me. They love me to death. What's that? Did I sleep with Nicole? Oh, I'm not. I'm not going to answer that question. No, I didn't. No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to get. Yeah, I did. I slept with Nicole. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I slept with. Of course, I slept with her. What? Oh, well, I'm not going to. That's. I'm a gentleman. I don't talk about stuff like that. Well, okay. No, I'll say this. Nicole was. She was a hostess. That's what she was in bed. She was like a hostess. She was a hostess out of bed and in bed. She was so giving, right? She was so warm and welcoming and giving. It was like having a hostess in bed with you, right? She was always like the perfect hostess. She was a lady. I'm a gentleman. She was a lady, but in bed she was a lady. I mean, Nicole's incredible. She's amazing. Yeah, but that's the best way to describe. Us in bed, that she was a hostess. Yeah. What's that? Oh, yeah. The first house was at Gretna Green. No, you're right. It was at Gretna Green. And then she moved to Bundy. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, she said, come along with me. And she had this place in Bundy. And between the garage and the main house was a suite. And she said, you can live in there. And then OJ came by and he said, no. He said he didn't want me living there. He didn't want me living in the suites. He said, that's in the house. He didn't want me in the house. It was okay when I was in a separate house, but he didn't want me in the house because, he was afraid I was going to sleep with her, And he didn't know. I mean, thank God. But he didn't know what was going on. But he said, you can't sleep in there. But OJ was cool. He was cool. He said, why don't you come up to Rockingham? You can come live at Rockingham. And I have some guest houses, and my daughter Arnell's in one of them, yeah. And you can live in another. You can live in one of the guest houses, and you come up to Rockingham, and that was like a palace. I mean, OJ was like he was like Norman Desmond. He was like my Norman Desmond. If Norman Desmond had been like a football player, she would have been OJ. Because he was great. He was like my sponsor, and yeah, I knew someone was going to bring that up. Jeffrey Toobin in that book, The People versus OJ, or whatever it's called. It's like what he said. Listen. This is what he said. He said, Kato has a permanent place in the history of freeloading. I'm like, come on. I mean, I'm just like, be nice. I'm a freeloader. Jeffrey Toobin is a leech. He's a leech because nobody read that book except for me. I'm the best part in that book. I mean, the rest of it is like everybody knows that stuff, but my stuff is always the best. And he's, that was Jeffrey Toobin. He was like. That was just Jeffrey Toobin. He's a leech. That's what he did. He leached my story. He leached my story from it. Yeah. So, but that's okay. I mean, not everybody can be nice, but that's my advice to people, that they should be nice. You should always be nice. Did I pay rent? Did I pay rent up there? No, I didn't pay rent. No, I didn't. OJ wasn't like that. He didn't make me pay rent. Yeah, he wasn't like that. What did I do? Nothing. I didn't have to do anything. Did I spy on Nicole? No, I didn't. I never spied on Nicole. I wouldn't do that. I spied on Nicole. OJ wanted me to spy on Nicole, and I spied on Nicole. But I was good at it, I was good at spying at Nicole. You know, I was good at it. So it was okay. You know, I wore sunglasses, right? You know, I was good at this. I was sort of a master of disguise, and I wore a hat. You know, and Nicole never saw me. She never saw me. She never saw me. She never saw me. She never knew I was spying on her. Yeah, it was good. And did I buy drugs for OJ? No, I didn't buy drugs. I didn't do that. I didn't. You know, come on. I didn't buy drugs for OJ. Come on. What kind of question is that? Yeah. Yeah, I bought drugs for OJ. Yeah, I bought drugs. Yeah, but I never bought anything, you know, bad. I bought like meth and cocaine, you know, but none of the bad stuff. Just, you know, meth and cocaine. You know, this is, you know, for fun. OJ liked to have fun. Yeah, he liked to, yeah. But you know, yeah. I mean, you know, hey, it's better than waiting or you know, auditioning all the time. You know, it was like I had a life. I had a life. Yeah, you know, and he gave me, and I'm good. I mean, I'm nice. I don't, you know, I didn't expect free stuff. I do, but you know, I'm also willing to do stuff for it. Yeah. The night of the murders? Oh, you want to talk about that? Huh? Wow, I should have known that. Yeah, I should have known about the night of the murders. Yeah, well, I can talk about the night of the murders. Yeah, well, this is what happened. The next morning, it was 5 a.m. After the night of the murders. It was 5 a.m. And I get this knock on my door. You know, it's like 5 a.m. And I'm like completely asleep. You know, I'm in bed. And so I kind of got up and I was really out of it. And I struggled into my t-shirt and I opened the door and there's Mark Furman, right? Detective Mark Furman. And he's got a bunch of other detectives with him. And I was really out of it. And he said, is OJ here? Is he on the estate? And I said, I don't know, but you should talk to her now. She's his daughter. She's in one of the other guest houses. So all the other detectives went over to the other guest house. And then he came into my room. And he was all like staring at me because, you know, I was groggy. Of course I'm groggy, it's the middle of the night. And then he holds up a pen and he gives me an intoxication test, right? He gives it to me right there. And I've got to follow this pen. I've got to follow this pen. Like this. I'm following this pen. I have to follow this pen. I'm like, I mean, you know, it's like he wants me to help him. But before he even asks me a question about anything, he gives me an intoxication test. And of course I passed the test. I mean, it was, you know, I wasn't drunk. I was groggy. Of course I passed the test. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't drunk. I was high, but I wasn't drunk. I wasn't drunk. I was high from the night before. I'd done crystal meth the night before. But he didn't even test me for drugs. He just tested me for you know, booze and then decided I wasn't drunk and went on. It's just like, he's like, Furman's an idiot, you know, and he's not nice. He wasn't nice to me. So then he goes over to my closet and he starts checking my shoes, right? And he like opens up my closet, he starts looking at my shoes, the bottom of my shoes. I'm like, he's looking for blood. You know, afterwards it occurred to me, he thought I'd done it. He was treating me like a perpetrator. And it's like, why do you treat people like this? Why don't you be nice and then maybe they'll help you? As opposed to like, you know, questioning them and giving them tests and treating them like perps. So anyway, so then he got all casual and he started asking questions and I had to tell him something. You know, I had to tell him something. So I told him what happened, but I didn't want to because he was not nice. And Marsha Clark was not. No, I see you as you're going to ask about Marsha. Marsha wasn't nice either. She wasn't nice either. She had the story. I gave them both the story, and then on a few days after the murder, I moved out of Rockland. It was too crazy up there. I was staying with a friend, and this was a few days after the murder, and all of a sudden, I get a phone call at 6 a.m. and it's Marsha Clark, and she says you have to get down here. To give a testimony to the grand jury. And I'm like, it's 6 a.m. And she said, well, you have to be down here at 8 to give testimony to the grand jury. We're sending somebody to pick you up. I was like, what? This is how this is done? I mean, you've already got my statement. So I called up a friend, and he set me up with an attorney. And the attorney said, meet me there. So I get down there, and the attorney's not there. And I'm sitting there in Marsha's office, and I'm like, trying to kill time. And I'm like, yeah, that's a nice print you got on the wall there, Marsha. And, you know, and all of a sudden my attorney comes in, he says, this is illegal. And she says, no, it's not. He's going to testify right now to the grand jury. We're getting on the elevator, we're going downstairs, he's going in. If he doesn't, it's contempt. I'm like, what? This is, I mean, come on. So we go down the elevator and we're heading into the grand jury room and she says, my attorney can't come in with me. I said, what? I mean, he came down here. She said, no, he can't come in with you. And he's like saying, this is completely illegal. You can't do this. And she said, we're doing it. Get in there. He has to give testimony. So my attorney like wrote something out really quick, And he handed it to me. I went in. They started asking me questions, and he told me to read the paper. And I kept reading the paper under advice of counsel. I'm not going to answer that question. So Marcia, she's been bullying me all morning, right? She's like bullying me, and she says, okay, well, get up. And she takes me into another courtroom with this judge, and she says, we're holding him in contempt of court. He won't give testimony. He's taking the fifth. He's not offended. He's a witness. He can't take the fifth. So she, and the judge says, wait, whoa. You rush him into the grand jury at 8 a.m.? No, I'm giving him till Monday. Give him at least till Monday. I mean, even the judge was on my side. I mean, it was like, they bullied me. And they wouldn't play nice. And my advice to everybody is play nice. That's how you get things. Play nice. What was that? Oh, the story I told in court. Okay, no, this is the story I told in court. It's the same story I told to Marcia and to Mark. Yeah, so they got the story. It was just, they didn't get all the details, but they got the story. Okay, so the night of the murder, before the murder, OJ came by my guest house, and he said he didn't have any money. He was going to take a flight that night, and he needed a $5 bill for the sky cap, and he only had 100. So I said I have a 20. So I gave it to him, and then OJ said, I'm going to go have dinner at McDonald's. And I said, can I come with you? And he said, yeah, okay. So we drove down to McDonald's, and we didn't go to the McDonald's that's closest to Rockingham. We went to another one. I don't know why, but we didn't go to the one that we were. And we did the drive-through, and the nice lady said how much it was going to cost. And OJ took out my 20, right, that I'd given him, and he gave it to her, and she made change, and he took the change and gave it to me. So, okay, I guess he didn't need the money for the sky cap. So then we went back, and we got back at 9:40, and then I didn't see him again. And then all of a sudden at 10:45, and I told Mark Perfmed this, there was these bangs on my wall, on the outside of my wall. It's like boom, boom, boom. And I didn't know what it was, but I thought it was an earthquake because it moved at pain. It was it's like, it's like an earthquake. And Mark Perfmed investigated that night. And then at 11, OJ came by and he said, I want you to put my bags into the limo. I'm going to the airport. So I put the bags in the limo. And I told that story in court. It's the same story that I told. So, and it was a perfect story because the alibi. I mean, he didn't keep the money. I didn't take that part out. He didn't keep the money. He gave it back to me. So much for the alibi, And I repeated that in court. The real story? Oh, you want the real story? Well, I'm not going to tell the real story. It's no, that's not. No, I'm not. Yeah. Come on, I'm not going to tell what really happened. Oh, okay. I'll tell you what happened. Okay. So OJ came by, and he said, I gave him a 20. He had 100. Blah blah blah. And he was going to go eat, and so I went with him. So that was all true. That's all true. But we didn't go to McDonald's. We went to Burger King. That's totally different restaurant. So that part I changed. But we were heading down the hill to Burger King, and he was like crazy. He was like mad. He'd been to a dance thing, this little little kids dance thing with for his daughter Sydney, and Nicole was there, and he said he couldn't believe how Nicole was dressed. And Nicole wouldn't let him talk to Sydney afterwards, and he was like raging. So we got to Burger King, and OJ gave me 100. He gave me $100, and he said, "Buy some meth." So behind Burger King is Ron X. That's this guy. That's not his real name. That's just like a name. So I went and saw Ron X. Who I know behind Burger King, and I got some meth, and OJ and I did meth. And then, we got some food, and then we went back up to Rockingham. Yeah, so I didn't put those details in. But that's what I'm saying. I mean, Furman, he just thought I was drunk, but I was actually high from the meth. And he was like, if he'd tested me, if he'd done his job and if he'd been nice, he might have figured it out, but he didn't. So I left that part out. And Clark was the same way. Marcia Clark was the same way. She bullied me, and she wouldn't, she kept wanting me to tell stuff, and she hates me. Marcia Clark hates me. She hates me. Why? I don't know. She says I'm a freeloader. You know, I mean, she didn't say that, but I could tell. She just hates me. But the thing is, it doesn't matter if you hate somebody. If you want something from them, you should be nice. Always be nice. That's what I. That's why I always tell Tiffany, and everybody. You know, be nice. Be nice. People like it when you're nice. Shapiro and OJ. So, oh, did they did they did they tell me what to say in court? No, no, they didn't. They didn't. Shapiro didn't. Yeah, Shapiro and OJ never told me not to say in court. No, no, that didn't happen. Yeah, well, okay, yeah. They did. They did. They told me what to say. You see, the night after you see, I'll tell you. I'll tell you because I want you to believe in me. The night after the murder, they said come up to the house, and I was in the kitchen, and they said this is what you're gonna say, and I was like, OJ backed me up against the sink, and he said, this is what you're gonna say, and I was like, I mean that's why I had to be locking it. That's why I moved in with my friend because it was too weird up there. I mean it was like scary, and Marsha Clark never made me feel safe. She never made me feel safe. She was always like attacking me, bullying me, treating me like some loser, and she never made me feel safe. And I had to go into court and give testimony, and OJ's sitting right there. He's sitting right there, and I have to say these things in front of OJ. And I didn't feel like she was going to protect me. And I mean, this is OJ. I mean, what does OJ do? People he doesn't like. So I was, and you can see it on the thing on the tape. You can see the first question she asked me is, "Are you nervous?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm nervous." I'm like, it's like, well, there's OJ, and so she never made me feel safe, and I had to sit there, and of course I wasn't going to tell everything because OJ told me not to, and she wasn't going to protect me, and she wasn't nice to me, and it was crazy. What? Yeah, okay. Let me. What's that? Did OJ do it? I'm not going to answer that question because that's a good question, right? That's $1 million question. So I'm not going to. Oh, okay, yeah, all right. OJ did it. Yeah, he definitely did it. He definitely did it. I mean, I was with him all night. I was in the car with him, and he was crazy. He was crazy, and maybe he was so angry at Nicole. I mean, he was insane at Nicole, and he was crazy. And the change thing, that phony change thing, you get money for the thing, the phony change thing. I mean, that was like a disaster. So OJ did it. Yeah, he did it. He definitely did it. And what's that? Was Nicole sleeping with Ron? No, Nicole wasn't sleeping with Ron. Ron Goldman? No, Nicole wasn't sleeping with Ron Goldman. No, Ron Goldman's gay. Yeah, Ron Goldman's gay. Ron Goldman's a waiter. He's a waiter. Yeah, Ron Goldman's gay. I'm the only person who's ever a waiter in Los Angeles who wasn't gay. I mean, that's why I got out of the profession because I wasn't suited to it. It wasn't the right profession for me. But Ron was gay. Ron was gay, and that's why, Nicole. There was no way, and OJ's so dumb. I mean, I told him, you don't have to worry about Ron. He's gay, but OJ, he was. But maybe Ron was just there. Maybe Ron was there and he shouldn't have been there. That's the thing. Maybe it was just because he was a witness. I mean, they were friends. He had gone by to give her glasses, and I think OJ just showed up. It was bad timing, And there's some more advice. Don't ever go anywhere. I mean, don't go anywhere ever, because this town is full of ex-husbands. It is. It's full of ex-husbands, and they're all crazy. Right? I'm an ex-husband. I'm crazy, And he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so don't ever go anywhere. That's the best advice I've heard. Fred Goldman, what? Oh, wow, Fred. I mean, it was horrible. It was horrible looking at Fred. Yeah, I mean, that was the hardest thing doing trial, looking at Fred, because Fred was a mess. I mean, he was a mess. Fred was, but okay, here's what people don't know. Fred was messed up because, not just because Ron was dead, I mean, of course he was messed up because Ron was dead, but Fred had cut Ron off. Ron wasn't just a waiter, he was a drug dealer. And Fred had told Ron, I can't support this lifestyle. I'm not going to support it. And he cut him off. And they hadn't spoken in a long time. And then he gets killed. And Fred was, he was a mess. He was just a wreck, And because, he felt terrible that he hadn't talked to his son, who I think he loved, obviously, he hadn't talked to him, and now he's dead. Now his son's dead. Yeah. And, it's sad, right? I always say, here's some more advice. Always be nice to your kids. Always be nice to your kids, because you don't know. I mean, they could, at any minute, they could just be like, they'd be killed, and then, you weren't nice to them, and then you have to live with that. The kid's dead, and, and you were not. I'm always nice to Tiffany. I'm on my daughter Tiffany. Yeah, I'm always nice to Tiffany because, she could go off to school, and, and then I'm like, I'm gonna feel bad, I mean, I would feel bad anyway, but if I was not nice to her, and suddenly she's like, I would, then I feel really bad, and that's what I mean. You have to be nice to people. You have to be nice. Why did I help Marcia? Well, I'm telling you why I didn't help Marcia, because she wasn't nice. But I did help Marcia. I did. I helped Marcia. I helped her a lot. I told that story about the thing, about the alibi. I told that. And I even said that he was tense. I said he was tense in the car going down. And she wanted me to say he was crazy. And she kept bringing up these transcripts from these earlier, from the grand jury questioning. She kept bringing up these transcripts saying, he's more than tense, he's more than tense. She wanted me to say he was more than tense. But at that point, I was like, I'm sitting there with OJ, and she's not going to protect me. So but I did say he was tense. And, I helped Marcia a lot. More than I should have helped her. Yeah, a lot more. Hey, this is the thing. You got to be nice. Okay, that's my advice. Be nice. I mean, I'm a freeloader, and the way I get things is I'm nice. I'm always nice to people. People love to give me things. They love to. I've never paid rent in my life, and it's because people welcome me into their homes because they like me, because I'm nice. I'm not funny, and and I know how to talk about stuff and all that stuff. But I'm also nice. I'm a nice person, and that's my best advice. Always be nice. What am I most proud of? Well, I was the first reality star. There were no reality stars before me, and I'm very proud of that. Being a reality star has been great. Yeah, that's what I am. And I also won this huge libel suit. Yeah, this was a landmark libel suit. The National Examiner magazine, at the grocery stores, it's right there. They put a big picture of me on the cover, and next to it said, "Police say that Kato did it. Police say Kato did it." And I was like topless. That was good. I mean, but next one is police say that Kato did it. And I was like, and so everybody sees that and they think, oh, the police are saying that Kato killed Nicole. And then they open it up and you turn 17 pages. I counted 17 pages. And there you see the article. The article says that the police think that Kato perjured himself on the stand. Not that he killed Nicole, but that he perjured himself. And, I didn't perjure myself. I mean, I left some stuff out, but I told you that's because people are nice to me. But you have to read the article. Nobody reads those papers. I mean, they're just there for you to look at. Like you're buying milk or toilet paper, whatever, baby food, cat food. You're buying something and you see, this paper, and you're like, oh, Kato did it. Police say Kato did it, and then you have to open it up. So we sued him for headline, libelous headline, and we didn't win. But then it went to the appeal court, and we won. It was a $15 million lawsuit. Yeah. I was really proud of that. And $15 million. And I mean, we didn't get $15 million because we had to settle because these guys would have gone to the Supreme Court. But I got a lot. And it was a landmark case because it never been considered libelous. It was like the stuff, but nobody's going to read that stuff because it was 17 pages later. So it was the first time a headline was considered libelous. It was a landmark case. I'm very proud of that. Yeah. So great. This is wonderful. I feel like I know you. Just from the questions, I feel like I know you better, and I feel like you know me. And so I've got this great investment opportunity, and I'm really excited about it because I think that it can only make money. It can't possibly not make money. And it is my reality show, and I'm the star. and it's called House Guest. And we get 4 people, 4 families to audition, and they have to have a nice house and all sorts of interpersonal dynamics. And then I decide which house to live at to become the house guest, and then the drama begins. And I think it's a great idea, and people are really excited about it. And this could go. I mean, I was thinking a sequel or an off-spin or whatever you call it would be a celebrity house guest, and we'd have celebrities audition for me. And I don't mean people like me. I mean like A-list people, like big people. Like George Clooney, he'd be a good one, or Justin Timberlake and Jessica Biel. Yeah, I mean they'd be good. I mean, I know them. So so I think that this is a super opportunity, and you just imagine. I mean, the people who win don't have to be like. It doesn't have to be like O.J. Nicole. It doesn't have to be like killing each other, But they should be pretty interesting. And there's a lot of interesting people in LA, and a lot of ex-husbands, like I said. Yeah, and like I said, I'm just a nice guy. I'm not the drama. I'm not going to go in there to create drama. I'm going to be in there as the observer, like I am. Yeah. So that's it. And it's getting back to that whole thing about Sunset Boulevard, which is like, if you're nice, you can have a palace in Beverly Hills. But I'm better than Joe Gillis because, of course, he got shot. He wasn't nice. I mean, he was like messing around with Norma, and she shot him in the back, and he died in the pool. You see, I like to swim in the pool. I don't want to die in the pool. And so that's the lesson I learned. I've gone farther. I mean, I've like taken this whole concept and gone farther with it into play nice. Be loyal. That's one thing. I mean, OJ will tell you that. I mean, I'm loyal. I'm a loyal house guest because I'm nice. So I'm better than Joe Gillis, right? And okay. Well, great. Okay, so I think we'll have a little break. And this was fun. This is good. This is good for me. I mean, I like talking about this stuff. I mean, I don't want to talk about it all the time, but I like talking about it. So great. So we'll take a break, and then in a little bit we'll come back, and these guys will give a presentation. These guys are great, and then we can start talking about investments and moving forward. That expression, moving forward. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. This is great. This is great. Good. 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 This next section is about Cato the Younger. Cato the Younger was a senator in ancient Rome. He lived in the 1st century BC. He was an honest man who always stood up against tyranny. To him, the greatest thing in the world, the most profound creation of mankind, was the Roman Republic. He would do anything to defend his republic. The life of Cato the Younger is written by a Greek man named Plutarch, who hundreds of years after Cato the Younger died, wrote a biography. Plutarch always wrote 2 biographies. He wrote biographies in tandem. So he would take a great soldier, like Alexander the Great, and another great soldier, like Julius Caesar, one a Roman, and the other a Greek. He would write their biographies separately, and then he would compare them. So for the purposes of tonight, we have paired Kato Keilen with Cato the Younger, because Plutarch's life that lived with Cato the Younger has not survived, or was never written. Here then is the life of Cato the Younger, senator of the Roman Republic. I am Cato the Younger. The Younger because I had a very famous relative, a distinguished man, who I never knew, because he lived long before I did. I'm a Roman senator, and for me, the most glorious achievement of mankind is the Roman Republic. Hundreds of years ago, Rome was a monarchy, and the monarchs could be cruel. Some were good, many were bad. The Roman people wanted representation. They didn't want to be led by monarchs. They didn't want a king. They wanted a democracy, like the Greeks had. So the Roman Republic was formed. It existed for hundreds of years, until a man came along that would bring it to an end. His name was Julius Caesar. Caesar was a magnificent man, a brilliant general, probably the best general of all time, a wonderful writer, a brilliant scholar, a charismatic man who could reach out to people and woo them with his word. He was benevolent. He was generous. He was kind. He was one of the most magnificent Romans ever. And he destroyed the Roman Republic out of selfishness. Caesar wanted the world, and he had it, but he wanted more. He didn't want to be the first man in Rome. He wanted to be dictator. He wanted to be emperor. He wanted the Roman Republic to become an empire so he could rule it. And while I might understand that, what I don't understand is this lack of vision, how he couldn't see that not everyone who would become emperor after him, not everyone who would succeed him, would be as talented as he was. I did everything I could to fight him. I fought him tooth and nail. I fought against him savagely in the Senate. Rome at the time still had a full republic. It was still strong. But there was turmoil. There were revolutions. The Catiline conspiracy. A senator named Catiline formed a conspiracy and rose up against the Roman Republic. He was going to take over Rome and rule it himself as dictator, and he was suppressed. He was defeated. And when he and his men and his lieutenants were brought before the Senate, we voted and determined that they must all die. As an example. Caesar came forward and he said, no, my friends must not die. Put my friends in prison. Don't kill my friends. And he started to defend his friends. And we said, no, this is ridiculous. He said, I will put it to the vote. I said, it's already been voted upon. And he said, no, I will put it to the vote. I will go to the Senate, read my appeal, and the Senate will vote. I said, it's been voted on. He said, no, I will make an appeal for my friends. On the day of his appeal, I showed up at the forum. He knew I was coming, and he had gladiators there who he had paid surrounding the forum to prevent me from getting in, to prevent me from entering the Senate. And I had to push my way through, and I was pummeled. Darts were thrown at me, dung was thrown on me, and I walked into the Senate. I made it inside, and I said, am I such a formidable man that it takes a regiment of gladiators to keep me out of the Senate? My job? And I saw Caesar sitting up there, and I walked up and I sat right next to him. And he stood up to read his proclamation, his appeal, and I grabbed it out of his hands and I brought it up and I threw it away. He was surprised. So he started to say his appeal, to speak it, and I put my hand over his mouth and I held it there. I held my hand on his mouth to restrain it. He didn't save his friends. I was able to prevent him that time. But now I had an enemy. He already feared me. He already hated me before, but now I had stopped him from something he wanted. So, he turned to the greatest general in Rome at the time. Before Caesar, this was the most profound general. Until Caesar's death, he was the greatest general. Pompey the Great, a magnificent warrior. Wonderful! Caesar turned to him, and he convinced Pompey to appeal to me for one of my daughters or one of my sisters as a wife. Pompey was going to marry into my family so that he and Caesar would have control over me. I said, you are not going to hold one of my daughters or one of my sisters hostage. Hostage? There is no back door to Cato. So Caesar did the next best thing. He married Pompey to his daughter Julia. Now Pompey was linked irrevocably to Caesar, which is exactly what Caesar wanted. Caesar then began to enact a series of laws that would bring the people to him. He was going to divide up provinces of Rome, Campania for one, the public land. He was going to divide them up and give it to the people, win the people over that way. And I said, this is outrageous. You cannot do that. It's against the Constitution. He said, I'm doing it. And I went into the Senate, and I railed against this. I would not let them vote on it because I knew that he had bribed many of the other senators to vote on his behalf, and I railed against it, and I filibustered, and I filibustered, and I filibustered, and eventually I was pummeled out of the Senate. Driven away. Caesar was powerful. He had many friends. He wanted me banished. He wanted me thrown out of Rome. Of course, he didn't do that for no grounds. So he had me transferred as quaestor to Cyprus to take care of their treasury. The treasury was in ruins. Cyprus was supposed to be a great source of revenue for the Republic, but no money was coming in because their treasury was in disarray. I went to Cyprus. I rearranged their treasury, and I brought money back to Rome. Galleons full of money. I sailed up the Tiber with the money I'd raised. More money than had ever been delivered from any province. And I was not entitled to a military triumph because I hadn't had a military victory. But the people lined the banks of the Tiber and cheered me for what I'd done. And the money was carried to the Senate. And there in the forum, I was told that I could wear the purple. I could wear the purple. I said, no, the purple is for the monarchs. There are no more monarchs in Rome. I would not wear purple. But I'd shown Caesar. I prayed about his own doing. Caesar combined with Crassus, another powerful man, rich man, and with Pompey the Great to form the first triumvirate. Crassus and Pompey decided they would run for consul a second time, and achieving consulship, they would rule Rome, and they achieved it through bribes, through extortion, through threats. They became consul, and then they turned around and made Caesar the military leader, the governor of Gaul, and they gave him his armies, all the legions in Gaul for 5 years. This was illegal. It was completely illegal. I went into the Senate and I railed against it. Once more, I filibustered. And in the midst of this, they proposed something else. Crassus and Pompey proposed that they be given military control of Spain, Syria, Africa, and Egypt. The rest of the Republic. The rest of our conquest. So, with Caesar in Gaul, the only thing left was Italy, surrounded by armies controlled by Pompey, Crassus, and Caesar. They could invade at any time. It was pure intimidation. I filibustered. I filibustered against this, and I was driven out of the Senate. Pummeled. Hit. Things thrown at me. Another election was coming up. I knew there would be conflict because everybody was dissatisfied. There was confusion. So many people wanted to be consul, and I was insistent that these be fair elections, so I instituted campaign finance reform. People were being bribed and being bought off. I said, no longer. And the only way I could do it, to keep it honest, was all monies would be given to me, a set amount for each candidate, no more, and then I would give it to the candidate. So that they wouldn't have extra money to buy people, to pay people off. It all had to go through me. And then I instituted election reform. And the only way I could think to do this is to stand there and watch every single Roman who could vote. I would stand there and watch them vote. They would walk up, and I would watch each of them vote to make sure that somebody else didn't vote for them, to make sure that somebody else wasn't intimidating them, looking over their shoulder, holding their hand and showing them how to vote. The senators said that I was forming a one-man Senate. They were resentful. I said, what else can we do? Regardless, there were too many candidates for consul. There was confusion. There was civil war in Rome. People wanted somebody to solve it. They wanted the hero. They started screaming for Caesar to come and save Rome, to be dictator, to set things right, or Pompey, either one. And I resisted both. I said, no, this is the end of the Republic. If we don't have two consuls, if we just have one, he will become a dictator, he will become an emperor, the Republic will be ended. But I couldn't win. It was impossible. So I stood proudly in the Senate and I declared myself for Pompey. I decided he was the lesser of the two evils. Pompey, great Pompey, the most brilliant warrior of all time, was not the smartest man. He wasn't the smartest. Yeah? So he could be controlled. He still believed in the Republic. And if that is idiocy, then give me idiocy. I knew that he still believed in his core about the Republic, so I supported him. And I went to visit him in the suburbs. And I begged him to use restraint, to not throw the Republic out, to get it back on the right road, but not to destroy the Republic. At this time, I had only one true happiness, and that was I was put in charge of the entertainments in Rome. I loved putting on entertainments, but my entertainments were simple. They were not costly. I didn't believe in spectacles. I didn't believe in big spectacles. I believed in simple theatrical entertainments, amusements, really. There were huge theaters that put on massive spectacles, but people always came to my theaters because they put on very simple entertainments, amusements, really. I was very proud of that. Well, unfortunately, I was not able to convince Pompey to restrain himself. He wanted to have things his way. So I decided I had to run for consul. And I would run a fair election. I would not let people promote me. I would not let people speak for me. I would speak only for myself. But I wasn't able to reach enough people, and I was not elected consul. And it was very frustrating because I had integrity in my election. And Cicero was very frustrated with me. He said, you must run again. I said, no, that's it. I run. It didn't work. I failed. And again, there was disorder. Massive disorder. And people were calling for Caesar to come into Rome and save Rome, to dissipate the violence, to bring order once again to the Republic. And I was distraught because I saw that people loved Caesar. He could woo them. He could give them what they wanted. He could say what they wanted. He was such a charming man, so charismatic. And his army was right there in Gaul, on the other side of the Alps, right there. And he kept threatening to bring it into Italy, which he wasn't allowed to do. It was against the Constitution. You cannot bring the legions into Italy, intimidate the Republic, and he was threatening. And I met with Pompey, and Pompey said, you were right. You were right about Caesar. I was wrong. And then Caesar entered Rome. He crossed the Rubicon. He entered Italy with his army. And the people cheered. They were relieved. He would bring order. Order at the price of the Republic. Order at the price of the Senate. Order at the price of representation. Freedom. He would bring order. I urged Pompey to fight him. Pompey said, I can't. And Pompey was a very smart warrior. He knew he didn't have the men or the supplies, so he went to Asia, where he was strong, where he had armies, and I followed with him. I was to have been the commander of his navy. He had a large fleet, but he decided against it. He decided that, in fact, he wanted somebody else to command the fleet, to be admiral, because he didn't trust me. He knew that I would win. He knew that I was a brilliant warrior in my own right, but he knew that if I did win, that I wouldn't let him rule the way he wanted to. It would give me too much power. I accepted that. I supported him. That's the lesser of the two evils. So he turned the navy over to another admiral, and they won a great victory against Caesar. I was, of course, not surprised. Pompey the Great, the greatest warrior. And people said to me, they said, now, aren't you happy? We are winning the civil war. And I said, there's no winner in a civil war. Romans only have died. I'm sad. Sad for Rome. Sad for the destruction of the Republic. The next battle was even larger between Caesar and Pompey, and I knew that Caesar couldn't win, but he did. Caesar defeated Pompey at Pharsalia. Unimaginable. Pompey with an army was undefeatable. Caesar vanquished him. I thought so long as Pompey's alive, there is still hope, and Pompey fled to Egypt, but he was betrayed. Pompey the Great, my last best hope for the Republic, was betrayed. And King Ptolemy of Egypt stabbed him in the back and cut his head off and presented it to Caesar, to curry favor with Caesar. I was resolute. Pompey's son, Sextus Pompeius, went to Spain to raise an army. I went to North Africa, to Tunisia, to Utica. And there, I found an army. And the people of Utica urged me to take command of the army, to lead it against Caesar. But I recognized there was another man more suited. He was Scipio. Scipio came from a famous line of warriors, Scipio Africanus, the greatest warrior in Rome before Pompey. This was his ancestor, and I thought, well, the people will follow Scipio. Scipio I can trust, and the people will follow him. So I said, no, Scipio must command the legions. And I counseled Scipio. I said to Scipio, caution, beware. Caesar is too strong. We can't fight Caesar. If we fight Caesar, we will lose. But if we can surround him, we might be able to succeed. Now, Sextus Pompeius was in Spain raising an army. We had the army there in Africa. I said I will go back to Italy and raise an army there, and then we will be able to surround Caesar, defeat him. Scipio said, you're a coward. You are a coward, Cato. You're just a coward. So he led his army against Caesar and was roundly defeated. No surprise there. He was assisted by King Juba, also destroyed. And I went back to Utica. When the people came to me, they said, we must surrender, we must give in to Caesar. I said, no. Caesar is a complicated man. He won't respect that. What we must do is we must hold out against Caesar. We must hold out against him. He will respect that. He will respect us holding out against him. And to have Caesar's respect is to have the best of Caesar. To give in, he won't just, he could do anything. If you're at his mercy, he might do anything. But if we hold out, and they said, oh, they were terrified. They said, have faith, trust, have it. They said, no. They didn't trust me. They would give in to Caesar. They would give in to him. They said to me that I must entreat. I must entreat. I said to them, those who are not conquered do not entreat. Those who have done no wrong do not beg pardon. I would not entreat. I would not beg for pardon. I had done nothing wrong. I would leave it to them. But I would not beg. Caesar was approaching the city. I threw a dinner party. I love my dinner parties. I love conversation. I love to talk. I loved wine. I never lay down on the couches as Romans did. I always sat up. And I drank my wine. And we discussed everything. And my son was there. And his friends. Many of my friends who followed me. And they asked me about Stoic philosophy. Because I was a Stoic. And they were curious. What does it mean to be a Stoic? And I told them that a good man only is free. All wicked men are slaves. To be good is to be free. To be wicked is to be a slave. It's simple. Live naturally. Live in the moment. Always be virtuous to everyone. And I argued so passionately that I think they heard what I was saying, what I was playing. And I saw them getting nervous. So I said, well, it's time to go to sleep. We all need rest. Please leave me. And I sent them away. And I picked up one of my favorite books, Plato's Book on the Soul, a wonderful book. And I started to read it. And I lay on my couch, now that I was alone. And I read 2/3 of it, and then I looked around for my sword, and I realized that my sword was not, I couldn't find it. And I called for my servant. I said, very casually, I said, bring my sword, please. And I read a little more of Plato's book, The Soul, and then I called in my other servant. I said, go to the harbor and make sure that those who want to flee Caesar have left, and those who are going to go out into the desert, that brutal desert, make sure they've left as well. I want to make sure that they are away. My servant left. I didn't read more in the book. And my servant went to my sword. Did he come back? So I called him. And I said, where's my sword? He didn't speak. He left. I put down my book. And then my son came in with my friends. And I said, give me my sword. Give me my sword. Why do you deliver me into the hands of Caesar? I demand my sword. And he brought it to me. And they handed it to me. I picked it up. And I slowly raised it so they could all see it. And I said, now I am myself. Leave me. I picked up my book. I read a little longer. My servant came back from the harbor. He said that everybody had left. People had fled into the desert. They were all well away. Nobody was left in the city who had wanted to get away. I said, thank you. I finished my book on the soul. I set it down. I slept a little. I think they thought I was going to sleep through the night. But just before dawn, I got up. And I picked up my sword. I think they must have heard me. They must have heard my cry. Because they all came in, and my wound was wide, and my innards were out. They were out on the floor. And my physician ran to me, and I knew what he was going to do. He was going to pick up my innards, put them back in, because they weren't pierced. And he was going to sew me up again. He was going to say, I should leave me. And he went away. And I pulled out my innards. And I widened my wound. And I bled. Caesar was hurrying towards the city. He'd heard that I'd made my decision. And he was worried that I would be dispatched before he could get there. As he approached the city, he heard that I was dead. And this is what was reported that he said. Cato, I grudge you your death, as you have grudged me the preservation of your life. And he was quite right. He would not have killed me. He would have forgiven me. He would have absolved me like a god. Because I would only add to his glory. Democracies are precious things. Republics are gifts. If there are gods, a republic is proof of gods of heaven. They must be preserved. There is always temptation to bring down the republic, to bring down a democracy, to make life easier, cleaner, simpler, safer. But once we give up our freedom, we give up hope, we give up equality, we give up that which is best in us, and we live at the mercy of a tyrant who can do anything. The Caesars are charismatic, charming, wonderful men, and we don't trust them. I was asked by the presenters to comment on the life of the other Cato. As was said, Plutarch liked to have comparative lives, and when he wrote my life, he gave it a companion. The life of a Greek senator, but that life was lost. It has not survived. So the presenters have paired me with another Cato, so that they could then compare the lives, and then asked me to comment on the life of Kato Keilen. And I would like to say this about Kato Keilen. I was very amused. I spoke earlier about simple entertainments, amusements, and I have to say I was very amused by Kato. He took me out of myself. He made me think differently about things. I like that. He's a very amusing man. I also would like to say that a court is sacrosanct. It is perhaps the most sacrosanct part of any democracy, and I can't sanction what it did in court. There's no half-truth or excuses for not telling the truth. We must be truthful, always, to ourselves, to each other. And we must hold the court as a place for truth. An amusing man, but I can't sanction his deeds. Okay. Yeah, okay. I've been asked to comment on the other Cato, okay. He commented on me, and, then he did his thing. And so I've been asked to comment on him, right? So, okay. That's fine. That's fine. I'll do that. I mean, it's 8 in the morning. I got woken up at 8. I said be nice. This is a nice time to ask somebody a question, but okay. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, I'm awake. I'm wide awake. My advice is be nice. Just be nice. And he went first, and he wasn't nice. I mean, he said, what a nasty thing to say. I mean, come on. It's like Mark Furman. It's like Marcia Clark. Be nice. It's like, why should I play nice? I have to say, okay, whoever heard of him? Everybody's heard of Julius Caesar. I mean, he's great. I was assigned Julius Caesar in college. I didn't read it, but I was supposed to. And everybody knows who Julius Caesar is. I mean, he's Julius Caesar. He even said it. He said he's great. He's great. And I never heard of this guy. I mean, you can see the amount of influence he's had on things. I never heard of him. So I gotta say, watching that story, I was like, yeah, Julius Caesar, he's the man. He's great. And so my advice is play nice. Play nice, because if you play nice, then, people are nice to you. And I'm not, I can't be nice to this guy, because he's, hey, Julius Caesar, that's the man. Great general, and he made Rome great. He made it great. He made it great. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight for Kato Cato, a comparative evening of biography of two important men with the same name. And it's been our pleasure to present this. We have some other programs coming up. On Saturday, Alligator Now, which is a reading of a play that will be done on Zoom. And you can find out about that at therhino.org. And also on Saturday, I'll be doing an encore presentation of A Tourist in Hawaii, which is a show that I did right here as an Essential Theater project. and it'll be at the Marsh. So that's at themarsh.org. And I'll be back next Thursday doing a new play, which is a mystery. It's a mystery, a whodunit. And if you'd like to support these programs, you can do so on our website, therhino.org. So just click on it, and we could use your support in these difficult times. But thank you, most of all, for joining us, and have a good night.